Test, test, test. Sound all right? Shabbat Shalom.
Lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai lai.
On behalf of Cantor Hyman and Rabbi Friedman and our president, Hank Bernstein, and our wonderful musicians, we are filled with joy to be able to say welcome to all in the sanctuary and all with us on the live stream. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Let's please be sure to be among community. Please take this moment to introduce yourself in the newly formatted comments, which we hope are more accessible online or in the room in person. This Shabbat, our congregation celebrates the bar mitzvah of Ian Goldberg. Mazel tov to you, Ian, to your mother, Andrea Kirschenbaum, and your father, Joshua Goldberg, your brother, Benjamin, who was a bar mitzvah here not so long ago, and sending mazel tov to your brother, Matthew, who was on the way home from college for this simcha. We kindle our Shabbat lights on page 2.
Baruch אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר של Shabbat.
Our Shabbat Kiddush is on page 5.
Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei peri hagafen Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כיוון בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת לחיים.
It was great to see so many of you earlier this week, when we learned about anti-Semitism with our guest author, Dara Horn. Among the many takeaways about our role in a world with anti-Semitism, takeaways that include our role as students, our role in teaching and sharing, our role in permitting ourselves anger, and also in embracing solidarity with other groups. I think the takeaway that is with me most this Shabbat is our role as Jews in a world where there is anti-Semitism is actually almost the same as our role as Jews in a world where there's no anti-Semitism. Because our role is to live vibrant Jewish lives. That is why we are here to celebrate Shabbat. And so we take a deep breath and release, turning to the joy of Jewish community, of vibrant Jewish living, Jewish values-driven community, and we celebrate Shabbat and add our voices to the sounds of the heavens with Yismechu Hashemayim. Add our voices to the joy of Shabbat, turning to page 13. And to bring us more energy, if you'd like, and if you're able, please rise.
Yismechu Hashamayim Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Letakel haaretz. Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Letakel haaretz. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam. Yiram hayam umelo'o, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam umelo'o, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam umelo. Yiram hayam umelo. Yismechu hashamayim, yismechu hashamayim, yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz.
We welcome the Sabbath angels, turning to page 24 for Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bochem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitzechem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Some say that there's a custom at the end of Lecha Dodi to turn around and greet the Shabbat bride as a nod to a time when the mystics would actually go into the forests and go as far as they physically could to find the essence of Shabbat and welcome Shabbat into their lives. Others say that we like to turn around for that final verse to see who else has joined us in the sanctuary since we last said hello to one another. And that's okay too if you have a wave or a greeting for someone else. We welcome the Shabbat bride with Lecha Dodi, pages 20 and 21.
Lecha Dodi, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. Lecha Dodi, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, ישמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ותפארת ולתחילה. Lecha Dodi, לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה כי היא מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה התעוררי התעוררי כי באורך ומאורי אורי אורי שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום עצרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה.
Turning to page 28, we continue with our call to worship.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Do you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach. לעולם ועד, לעולם ועד. יא לה 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 לה, 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 יא לה 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 לה.
On the middle of page 30, together. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening.
Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim.
On the middle of page 32, together. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel.
Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Page 36, please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך, בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך, ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אמת.
Every time we sing Mi Chamocha, we tell our story in order to celebrate, to cement, to see the way forward towards liberation. 2 years ago, early pandemic, we celebrated 100 years of women's suffrage with a justice-focused and anti-racism voting justice-focused keynote from the head of the Jewish Women's Archives. That celebration launched an incredible group of Rodef Shalom congregants into a research project uncovering suffragist history in Philadelphia, in the Jewish community, and here at Rodef Shalom. This week, at its annual conference, Reform rabbis marked 100 years since the Reform rabbinical arm voted to admit women. It is no coincidence that women were deemed worthy of the rabbinate so soon after women in the United States got the vote. The impact of the suffragists on social justice leaves a deep legacy for us all to understand. This coming Wednesday, when our congregants take us on the journey for the program Philadelphia's Jewish Suffragists, How They Inspire Social Justice Today, I will think of Micha Mocha, of Miriam and her timbrels, and of every time since when women and all genders have brought timbrels to lift up liberation. Page 40.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילו עושה פלא, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילו עושה פלא, מי כמוך באלים אדוני. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלי ענו ואמרו, זה אלי ענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך באלים אדוני.
Pray as if everything depended on God. Act as if everything depended on you. Page 46. Please rise.
Yai lai 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 lai, ya la 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 lai lai lai. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehillatech. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Ya la lai lai lai, 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 ya la lai lai lai. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avoteinu ve'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממיץ ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. Turning to page 61, let us join together in our blessing for peace. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. Page 60.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. 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 Ki ata melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'einecha levarech את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
We take these moments for silent prayer.
עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
In a moment, we will be on page 253 for the Mishaberach, our blessing for healing. In our prayers for healing, we turn our hearts to the brokenness of the world. Our concern has rightly been with Ukraine, and our embrace of care extends to include more. This week in Israel, a man connected to ISIS killed 4 people on a murderous rampage. 2 people were killed in Hadera, and another 5 in Bnei Brak, including 2 Ukrainian citizens, and including Jews, Druze, and Arab Israelis. Deep loss and the fear and anxiety of terror. In a fractured world, we long for hope, for healing. And in our own families, too, we pray for recovery from illness, from loneliness, from despair. If you have a loved one touched by serious illness or brokenness, please add that name to the comments or speak it aloud now.
שברך אבותינו אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, שרה, רבקה, רחל ולאה, הוא יברך וירפא את החולים. מי שברך אבותינו אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, שרה, רבקה, רחל ולאה, הוא יברך וירפא את החולים. אל נא רפא לה, אל נא רפא לה, אל נא רפא לה, אל נא רפא לה. מי שברך Avotenu Abraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel v'Leah, hu yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim.
Our thoughts now move from thoughts of brokenness and healing to thoughts of joy, celebration, and gratitude as we prepare to sing our Shehechi Anu, our blessing of gratitude on page 344. And I know we are grateful for so many simchas tonight. If you're on the live stream, please feel free to write in the comments some of the things that you're celebrating, birthdays or anniversaries or anything else good like that. I know here in the sanctuary, Ian, are you celebrating anything? Yes. What are you celebrating, Ian? Woohoo! We are so excited to celebrate with Ian and his whole family as tomorrow morning he is called to the Torah. Also, as I look around in the sanctuary, I see so many of our Berkman Merkaz Limud students and their families. I am so grateful to have so many of you here. It was great to have dinner with you earlier. It's so wonderful to see so many of you. I'll also add that I'm grateful, especially this week, and grateful to all of you for the help in the confirmation, finally, of Deborah Lipstadt as the special envoy for anti-Semitism. And I know many of you helped to write letters and call your elected officials to help make sure that that confirmation took place. Anything else folks are celebrating, feel free to shout it out. What are you celebrating, Cantor Hyman?
I'm celebrating.
We're all celebrating.
I know, but I'll just share that I'm very, very happy that we have the return of a fantastic piano to our incredible arsenal of musicians. AJ Luca, who hopefully some of you are very familiar with from the High Holy Days, is thankfully able to also play for us on Shabbat. So it's going to increase the joy.
We are so thrilled to have you, AJ. Welcome back. This is so nice. And anyone else? Feel free to, shout it out. Allegra. Oh, you're here with your cousin from Hawaii. It's so wonderful to see your whole family here. I know we're remembering your parents, grandparents. We have William here, remembering your namesake. So wonderful to have you guys all here with us, Colemans. For all of the, what do we got? Feldman's. 20 years, amazing. Oh, Hope and Matt, mazel tov to you, mazel tov to your whole Jacob and Evelyn. I guess you get a mazel tov too because you wouldn't be here otherwise, so that's pretty good. You're probably very grateful for them being married for 20 years. For all of these simchas and so many more, we joined together in Shehechi Anu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehecheyanu v'kiyimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehecheyanu v'kiyimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
Shabbat Shalom. Water has a very unique place in our Jewish tradition. Creation begins with water, with darkness on the face of the deep, and God's Spirit sweeping over the waters. Ruach Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim. When Hagar is cast out into the wilderness, God opens her eyes to see a well, and that water saves her and her son Ishmael. Eliezer, Abraham's servant, finds Isaac a wife, Rebekah, at the well. They meet at that well where she offers him and his camel's water. The waters of the Nile River killed so many of our people during the time of Passover, of Pharaoh, but also saved Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses our teacher. God parted the Sea of Reeds and created that pathway for our people's liberation. Through that narrow strait of the waters, we were reborn as a free people. And Miriam's well. Many of us at our Passover Seder will have a cup of water for Miriam, remembering that well that accompanied the Israelites on their journey throughout the desert. And in this week's very Torah portion, we see the power of water to spiritually cleanse. In this week's Torah portion, Tazria, we learn about ritual purity and impurity. First, just to be really clear, ritual purity and impurity, in Hebrew tameh and tahor, are not moral or physical constructs. When someone is ritually impure, they're not bad, they're not dirty. It is a state of being related to the sacrificial cult of the ancient Israelites. And removing these ritual impurities was a precondition for coming into contact with the holy, with God, such as offering a sacrifice. We learn in Leviticus that various events render ritual impurity onto someone. They include menstruation, childbirth, ejaculation, coming into contact with a dead body, the appearance of various skin diseases, and more. The text then gives instructions for purification. Not surprisingly, fresh water is essential to the process. We read in Leviticus, "They shall bathe in mayim chayim and shall be clean." That Hebrew phrase, mayim chayim, translates as living waters. These waters are indeed waters of life. The sense of the idiom, according to the modern translator Robert Alter, is that the water is not stagnant but flowing, either from a spring or from a river. The ritual, he writes, is designed to carry off the impurities from the place inhabited by the community. With the destruction of the temple in the year 70 CE and the end to the sacrificial service, many of these laws about ritual purity became irrelevant. And yet, the power of water to spiritually cleanse was not lost from our tradition. The rabbis derived their laws that require immersion in a mikvah, in large measure from these very texts in Leviticus. For those that had never been, a mikvah is a ritual bath. Now, it is not merely just a pool of water. The word mikvah literally means gathered, and it must be composed of gathered water and must contain a certain percentage of mayim chayim, that living water, water derived from a natural source, such as a lake, an ocean, or often rain. Mikvah is so central to our Jewish tradition that a Jewish community with limited resources was directed by the Talmud to prioritize constructing a mikvah over even a synagogue. And archaeological excavations, like at Mount Masada, demonstrate that even while under the siege by Romans in a place that water was scarce, the Jews built mikvaot. They built these mikvahs. Not surprisingly, while the original laws of purity in Leviticus applied to all genders, the laws of mikvah became mandatory for women and optional for men. Traditionally, women were obligated to go to the mikveh every month after their menstrual period before re-engaging in sexual intercourse. Because of this one-sided requirement, many in the progressive Jewish world saw mikveh as an outdated, misogynistic practice. Scholars like Rachel Adler maintain that these laws reflected a slave theology that furthered the oppression of women in Jewish culture. However, more recently, in the past 20 years or so, many women, and those of all gender, have begun to reclaim mikvah. Contemporary re-innovations of the mikvah have focused on making the experience more inclusive and expansive. In 2001, journalist and writer Anita Diamond founded Mayim Chaim, Living Waters, which describes itself as a resource for learning, spiritual discovery, and creativity. Mayim Chaim is a pluralistic mikvah that welcomes people of all genders and abilities, provides space for celebration of life cycle events and conversions, and offers its services to survivors of trauma and those seeking to experience the ritual of mikvah in their own ways. Mayim Chaim, located in my hometown of Newton, Massachusetts, is beautiful, and I've had the opportunity to use their mikvah on more than one occasion. However, one need not travel all the way to Newton to find a pluralistic, inclusive, amazing mikvah. We are blessed to have one in our own community, located at Temple Beth Hillel Bethel in Wynwood. Known simply as the mikvah, this serene place feels almost like a spa, with perfect lighting, temperature, and ambiance to create a truly spiritual space. There are many reasons people choose to go to mikvah today. Mikvah is all about transition and rebirth. The mikvah takes us back in time as we immerse ourselves in the world of creation. The Hebrew root that forms that word mikvah first appears in Genesis, in the creation story, when God says, "Let the waters beneath the sky be gathered in one place." Traditionally, a mikvah has 7 steps leading down into the water, reminding us of those 7 days of creation. And while suspended in the mikvah waters, we are meant to feel as if we are once again in the womb, embraced and protected. And when we emerge anew from the waters, we are reborn in a sense. Water also has the power to soften. It does not wash away everything that happened in the past, and it does not magically change us. But it does give us space, give us permission to change. It softens us so that we might remold ourselves. I have been blessed to accompany Jews and those becoming Jews on visits to the mikveh for many years in my role as a rabbi. I accompanied a mother and her 2 daughters who converted to Judaism by immersing in the mikveh after years of study and involvement in our community. I accompanied a transgender Jew in our community who used the mikveh to affirm their gender identity after surgery. I accompanied pregnant mothers who immersed in the mikveh to pray for a healthy birth. I've been with people at the mikveh for healing after a miscarriage. I myself have been to the mikveh for my own personal immersion 3 times. When I started rabbinical school, when I finished, and before I got married. All 3 powerful moments of transition in my own life. If you have never been to a mikveh, I encourage you to reflect on whether this might be a ritual that could offer some meaning in your life. Maybe there'll be a time when you're going through some sort of transition and you're looking for a way to mark that moment in a Jewish way, with a Jewish ritual. As Tamara Cohen writes in The Torah, a women's commentary, when one plunges into the mikveh, the links with creation and with our spirituality extend even further. When we remember that we are created in the image of God, mikveh becomes a reminder of the infinite within the finite, the immortal within the human, the limitless options offered to humanity. Water is an essential building block of life, and our tradition deeply understands this. The Mayim Chaim, the living waters of the mikveh, have the power to connect us with the past, to help us mark sacred moments of transition, and to give us a renewed sense of life. Shabbat Shalom. We continue in our service with Aleinu on pages 282, followed by 287. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגובהי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. There are stars up above. So far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. This week, our congregation observes Yahrzeit for Morris Abrams, Louis F. Anathan, Bernard Ashner, Beverly Batoff, Moses Harris Berger, Leopold Bergsman, Marcia Berneman, David Florenz Blumar, Emily M. Blumar, Bernice Pollock Blumenthal, Bruce David Brandis, Nanette Wheel Brinkman, Patricia C. Brody, Abraham J. Brown, Robert Elliott Buller, Leon C. Bunkin, Doris Chudnoff, Herbert Cohen, William Thaddeus Coleman, Jr., Jean W. Davis, Esther DeAngelis, Henrietta Dilsheimer, Jerome Dubrow, Karen Beyersdorfer Ellis, Phyllis Ellman, Ann Feldman, Carol Gertzley, Henry Gertzley, Isaac Gertzley, Beverly Goldberg, Isaac M. Goldsmith, Rosalind Goodman, Edward J. Goodman, Betty Fried Gottlieb, A. Leonard Goulson, Henry Greenwald, Sarah Bobrow Gross, Elmer Gross, Stanley M. Halpern, Pitza Harticolis, Harry J. Hartz, Melva Judith Heron, Adolf Hess, Herman L. Hinlin, Benjamin Hoffman, Goldie R. Jacobs, Hannah B. Carden, Lawrence Katz, Julius Carterer, Saul Wedren Kessler, Shirley Clare, Jack H. Klein, Arnold Comans, Joseph Koch Copland, Armando Kostianowski, Sarah Khrushchev, Norman Dresden Lebron, Albert Lerner, Anna Rossman Lewis, Richard Lichten, Flora Lifter, D. Arthur Magaziner, Martha Manco, David I. Mann, Robert Milton Maybaum, J. Robert McFarlane, Rose Berman Michelson, Silbert Moritz, Louis New, Lori Levin Pesner, Ellard Louis Falzer, Jane Riccardi, George Rosen, Bertha Rode Rosenstein, Stephen M. Rosenthal, S. Leon Roskam, Adolf E. Schechter, Martin Schulman, Jean Abram Schwartz, Cecilia Shear, Joseph Shore, Betty Ann Simon, Dorothy Sclair, Andrew Edward Slavin, Ina Sue Smoke, R. Robert Smith, Philip Spear, Eugene M. Stern, Isidore Strauss, Elizabeth Swit, Solomon Teller, Rebecca Hackenberg Teller, Helen Udell, Edith Erkowitz, Herman Weiler, Israel Weiner, Jack Weiner, Andres Bundy Weiss, Marcus Wohl, Dora Wolmuth, Earl L. Wolfe Sr., Edith Zackheim. And we add the names of those who've been taken from our midst, but not from our hearts, in these most recent days for whom we are observing Shiloshim, the 30 days of mourning. Erwin C. Saft, Jacqueline Hanover, Amy Maltzman, Milton M. Mosen. If you are observing Yahrzeit or Shiloshim For a loved one whose name was not mentioned, I invite you to say their names aloud now or to write their names in the chat. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing. We turn in our prayer books to page 294 and rise for the mourner's Kaddish. Yit Gadal v'yit Gadash Shemei Rabbah, B'alma Divra Chirutei v'yamlich Malchutei, B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, B'agala v'zman karid v'imru, Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam omei omaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal, Shmei dekudisha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace and comfort to all who are bereaved among us, and let us say, Amen.
Ose shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru, Amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru, Amen.
If you are new to the congregation, we hope you'll introduce yourself to the wonderful Chip Ellis, who's waving right there at the back. We wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. We will conclude with our benediction. First, the words of Isaiah the prophet from a famous Israeli folk song, Ushavtem mayim bisason mimaynei Yeshua, joyfully you shall draw water from the wells of salvation.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav eilecha v'chuneka. Yisa Adonai panav eilecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav eilecha v'chuneka. Yisa Adonai panav eilecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May God bless us and keep us.
Ya'er Adonai panav eilecha v'chuneka.
May God's light shine upon us, and may God be gracious unto us.
Yisa Adonai panav eilecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
May we feel God's presence within us always, and may we find peace. Ken Yiratzon, may this be God's will. Shabbat Shalom.